Hey, welcome to today's video. My name is Bharat Divyang. In this, I wanted to analyze a game played by one of my students. The reason why I want to do this is oftentimes we think that we're going to have the most perfect game in chess to win. But reality is often different. While the expectation is one of perfection, reality is one filled with blunders and comeback. So this is a game where he blunders first, and it's a blunder that does happen a lot among beginners and intermediate level. Then look at how he comes back. Now, sometimes you don't get to see these things in professional grandmaster games because it pretty much goes sideways, kind of equally poised. But the fun about watching amateur games is that it shows you that it can go up and down, and therefore it builds this quality of mental toughness which eventually takes you to becoming a professional chess player. Without further ado, let's get started. So the game starts e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, d3, and pawn push. Now, one thing that you got to be always careful when you bring the bishop out in a Sicilian, and you're not playing traditional Sicilian, which is to basically move d4 instead of d3, is that the bishop can get trapped. So if you are somebody who's played a lot of Sicilian, you definitely know this and you'd be careful about it. But this was something that he was playing for the first time, so the blunder does happen because you're not aware of it. Okay, so bishop pins the knight, his bishop defends with d7, castles, and here's a6. Now the correct move here is to take the knight. You capture the knight because if you move the bishop back, then you get blunder. You get the bishop trapped. Now, this is something that often happens because, you're also learning that you don't want to get rid of the pin yourself. Exchanging, not a good idea. So maybe saving the bishop can kind of save you. And you don't see a direct threat right away. In the heat of the moment, you end up making moves like bishop a4, only to realize that you've been trapped. So there's some kind of way in which you can try to escape this out, but not much because ultimately there's nothing that can be done except lose the bishop. So here there's a bit of a turnaround, which is his idea was, okay, if I take the pawn and the knight takes it, then the pawn takes it, he takes it, and I take it back. So I end up getting 2 pawns for a bishop, which is still a playable game considering black's queenside pawns have kind of gone. And so the idea was, instead of trying to just lose the bishop, to take the pawn and be a little bit more aggressive considering that the bishop is under pin and there's a stronger attack. So this is how the comeback happens. So the blunder does happen, you can't deny it. You are losing that bishop. But can you get something in return, which might not be piece, but it could at least be position? And the positional advantage here is basically that the kingside pawns have become isolated now. Okay, whereas white's pawns are stronger. So he has extra pawns, 5 pawns for black against 7 pawns for white, but at the same time, 2 open files. So open file with the rook and open file with this one. So positionally much stronger. So can a comeback happen? Okay, so bishop f5, pawn push. Idea being, I'll attack the knight and then I can kind of pin him. But castle nullifies the whole thing. And this is what happens when you attack, right? Like you're on the defensive, you've of course blundered, you've lost a piece, but attacking can lead to potential, comeback. So here, black decided that he's going to attack this one. But here came the clincher. So now I'm attacking the bishop. So if the bishop takes it, then the knight takes it and you have an exchange. You might lose pawns, but you're going to be pretty much into an equal position. So this is where the game equalizes. But you would not see a typical player taking the pawn. He would do something else. And the move that he decided to make was to move the bishop back. So you could say, what about queen taking the pawn? That's the problem, because then you lose the bishop here. So he moved the bishop back, you attack the knight, and knight takes the pawn. And this was where the blunder happened. Because now, if you try to save the queen, then it's just a check. Knight can't take it back because queen takes queen. And if you take it to the queen, then you lose your queen. So this fork promises to gain the piece back. But that's not what happened. What happened was something even worse for black, which is he decided to sacrifice his knight, thinking that he can basically exchange queens in a way. Like he thought, okay, I'm going to take this, he's going to take this, and probably it'll be an exchange and he would get the piece back. What he did not realize was that white could just take the knight first, and he doesn't have to take the queen right away because he has his versions of move. He can take the bishop, give a check. Once king moves, then you take it back. So now here's the story, right? Where did it start? It started with white blundering a piece. And where is it right now? It ends with black blundering two pieces. So in essence, while the pawns are equal, white has a way better position and it has an extra piece altogether. So there were a couple of moves that happened after this. With a check, king moves here. At this point, you can pretty much see that the game is done. Okay. The most ideal move here would have been to move the bishop here, because even if he takes this, you give a check, king moves here with a check. You can try and exchange it out and play a much stronger game. But nevertheless, the game went on from here and eventually white won the game. It was quite lengthy, but I'm going to stop here because I want you to focus on this one key point. Blunders do happen in chess games. But if you quit mentally, if you say that, hey, I think my game is gone here, then it's not going to happen. You've got to find your way to claw yourself back into the game. Right? In this case, white started by figuring out the positional side of it, created a double pawn on the f file, and then started attacking little by little and eventually got a point where the game turned around completely with white winning the game. So the lesson is comebacks do happen, but it happens only if you don't quit. So I hope you found this game and the video useful. If so, please do share, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.